Well, there once was a man who was a friend of God. And God called this man one day. And God gave this man a piece of land. And he said, this is a garden. And the only thing that was there was shrubbery. It was really rough, thorns, shrubbery. Nothing really looked appetizing on that piece of property. But the man looked on it and he noticed that soil was really rich. And I said, what am I going to do with this? He says, oh, this is your property. I am giving you this. I'm gifting you this. I want you to take this and make something out of this. This is your livelihood. So he said, all right. So he took the piece of property and then he cleared it, removed the grass, the shrubs, the thorns, everything that was not of use, and then he burnt it by the side. And he still took the ashes, but he burned in the spelly on it. He got some animal manure, and then he, planted some seeds. And then in a few months, some of the seeds that were designed to grow in a week or 2 or 3 began to sprout. And this man looked at it, and he just longed every day to, go and tend to his garden. And he did that for days, and this garden began to sprout. It began to grow. And in a few years later, different animals began to come to his garden. His garden began to attract stuff. Lizards will come. Every kind of animal will just come there. And his garden was beautiful. Bees and butterflies would come to the flowers. Everything was it was just a beautiful place. It was a place of life and living and enjoyment and excitement. And God would come to meet him in that garden and they would sit together and have fun. And it was just beautiful. One day, a fox came to the garden with her litter, and this guy drove the fox away. And as she was driving the fox away, a little baby fox was left behind. And this man just looked at this baby fox, and he was filled with pity. He was so tender, and he didn't look like he could do anything. And he said, "Oh, I can't be mean." So he took this baby fox and he kept it. And this fox became his pet. And he was always playing with it. He actually spent more time with this pet than he spent with other things. One day, a friend of his came to visit him, who also had a garden someplace, and the man said, you have a fox in your garden? And you have grapes here? Foxes? And the man was cautioning him, and he just told the man, didn't I see a big fat snake in your own garden? And the man kept quiet, saying, you go and deal with your snake. Leave my fox alone. This is a pet. She loves me, look at her. She's so cute. And this fox grew, and the garden grew, and a few years later, the man would make harvest, sell, make some money, was living, life was good. But at some point, he began to realize that his harvest was coming up short. Ever so often, some grapes will be missing. Some of the nice little plants he's planted somewhere will be ravaged and destroyed for no good reason, and it began to ache him, and he began to wonder, who was this? Who was responsible for messing up this beautiful garden of mine? But he never suspected his pet fox. And this pet fox began to have friends outside, began to hang out with other foxes, and they would just come to the garden, and he never caught it. But one day, as he heard some noises in some bushes, and he went to check, and he saw his pet fox ravaging his crops. And he called out its pet name, and this fox looked at him, and he saw the evil in the eye of the fox. When he tried to drive it off to shoo it away, this fox bit him so hard, he screamed and he took off. And he realized that his pet was the thief of his destiny. God gave everyone a heart. This heart is supposedly, this is our garden. Every issue of life comes from this sanctum, this inner sanctuary that we all have possession of. Now, the result that you get is dependent on what you let in your garden. If you let butterflies in, if you let birds in, there'll be music, there'll be beauty, there'll be color. If you let a snake in, well, if you let a fox in, it's left to you. You see, the things we allow into our hearts determine the outcome of our lives. If you let selfishness, we let greed, we allow avarice, we let covetousness, there's some attributes that you let into your heart will determine the results you get. But if you allow stuff like joy, peace, friendship, friendliness, happiness, goodness, there's one thing you realize, that the most important thing a man can do for himself is to be good. Is to allow good into your heart. So your heart is your garden. Watch what you let in. What comes into you will determine what you're able to produce. So keep your garden alive with the very, very best of friends. And these friends are nothing but character, behavior, values, life. Mr. Man, keep your garden alive.